On St Piran's Day 2000, MK had launched a petition calling for a Cornish Assembly, clearly asserting that Cornwall is a nation with its own identity, culture, traditions and history. The petition went on to call for a Cornish Assembly that could set the right democratic priorities for Cornwall and provide a stronger voice for our communities in Britain, in Europe and throughout the wider world. With teams of canvassers in towns from St Just in the west to Millbrook in the east, all under the enthusiastic coordination of Paddy McDonough, this petition was soon gathering hundreds and then thousands of subscribers, each on an individual A4 sheet. The hugely symbolic figure of 20,000 was reached with a public signature by Dean Shipton, then captain of the Cornwall rugby team. By the time we were looking to draw this campaign to a close and submit the petition to Downing Street, 50,000 people from Cornwall, fully 10% of the Cornish electorate, have signed this declaration. Support came from 4 of Cornwall's 5 MPs, from over 130 councillors of all political persuasions, and outside of Cornwall, support was forthcoming from Plaid Cymru MPs and Assembly members, SNP MPs and members of the Scottish Parliament, and several Irish TDs, including at least one Irish Government Minister, Eamon O'Queeve, who was the grandson of Eamon de Valera. Running in parallel with the Assembly petition was the creation of a new cross-party pressure group, the Cornish Constitutional Convention. This emerged from a conference under the title Whose Regions, held at Lanson and jointly organised by MK and an English devolution pressure group called Devolve. The convention was launched on the 7th of July 2000 at a meeting addressed by, amongst others, Tory parliamentary candidate Nick Circle and Lib Dem MP Andrew George. Driving personalities behind this work were Bert Biscoe, Dick Cole and Stephen Horscroft. Representatives of the convention twice met with government ministers and made a coherent case for thinking beyond a geography which just played blind obedience to existing regional development agency boundaries. One persuasive argument that was made was that Cornwall was missing out on £59 million of economic activity every year simply by dint of all the regional centralisation of various quangos, government departments and privatised infrastructure companies which were all based outside Cornwall. That £59 million wouldn't be the benefit to the Cornish economy if they were all based west of the Tamar, but rather what the pro rata share would be if the relevant proportion were based here. Exeter and Bristol were getting rich at the expense of Cornwall. Business Age magazine picked up on these issues and published an article which bluntly accused central government of Anchally. They went on to say, out of a tiny gross domestic product of 3.6 billion, the government takes over 1.95 billion in taxes and puts back into Cornwall less than 1.62 billion, a gap of more than 300 million. That's not some rabid Cornish nationalist saying that, that's Business Age magazine saying the government's taking 300 million a year more out of Cornwall than it's putting in. They also drew attention to the high proportion of household incomes being spent on mortgages, insurances and loans, further funds being spent that were being removed from the Cornish economy. This work, the petition from MK, the Cornish Constitutional Convention, the lobbying of government ministers, the recognition of the economic impact in the serious business press, all represented the most coherent, consistent and publicly supported case for a new constitutional settlement from any part of the United Kingdom. The government was consulting on new regional structures. So, 50 years after MK was founded at the Oaks Temperance Hotel in Redruth, our time was coming, you might think. But no. In the white paper launched by the then Deputy Prime Minister, John Prescott, the case for Cornwall was ignored. In the preface, in the name of the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, there was reference to creating regional structures where there is public support. The petition of 50,000 signatures from Cornwall, delivered to his front door, was 50,000 more people in support of a Cornish Assembly than for any other option anywhere else within the remit of this review. A regional assembly of 25 to 35 members covering everywhere from the Isles of Scilly to Bristol and Wiltshire was on offer, with perhaps 2 members from Cornwall. Reaction was predictable, perhaps the most fundamental point coming from our local MP, Andrew George, who said that the government should be looking to regions which actually exist rather than synthetic places created by them. Cornwall County Council, 4 of the 6 district councils, numerous town and parish councils all backed claims for a Cornish Assembly or for a referendum on the question.